So hello everyone, round 4 and it's on day 2 and the tournament is heating up, and this was a game between Gabriel Njuki and Mehul Gohil. So there's a little bit of a backstory before this round. The previous evening, I should say, we'd spent almost the entire evening trying to figure out what Gohil was going to play. Now we were with Gabriel preparing, and personally, I thought Gohil was going to play a French defense, and that's what I told Gabriel to prepare against. So Gabriel prepared against a French. He looked for some games in the French, but I'm not going to say that he only looked at the French only, because he looked at other openings too. And I'm guessing, okay, what Gohil played missed. We missed what Gohil was going to play. We couldn't predict this. But then this just shows that Gohil is probably, especially when playing against weaker opponents, he plays literally anything. But when he plays against the best of the best, he plays the lines that he's very comfortable in, like the French defense. So just before round 4 in the morning, we were told that this round on day 2, the first round, I mean round 4, was going to start 30 minutes earlier than round 1 had started the previous day. So it wasn't really common, and many people missed this. I mean, it happens a lot in Kenyan tournaments, that the second day of the tournament, the rounds start a little bit earlier than the first day, and many people missed this. So Gohil was one of the people who arrived really late, and he got to the board, I think, around 25 minutes later than Njuki. So let's see how the game went. Pawn to e4 was played by Gabriel Njuki. Pawn to c6, Gohil replied with the Caro-Kann. Pawn to d4, pawn to d5, and now pawn to e5, going for the advanced variation. Bishop to f5, pawn to h4, going for the tile variation, but here just Gohil replies with pawn to h5. Bishop to d3, bishop takes, queen takes. Pawn to e6, knight to f3, queen to b6, and now knight b to d2. Continuing with development. Queen to a6, trying to trade the queens, and again in this position you don't really want to trade queens as white. You want to keep some sort of play in the position instead of going for a straight out endgame. So pawn to c4 by Gabriel Njuki, and now knight to h6. Queen to c3 rather, knight to d7, and now pawn to b3 by white. Pawn to b3 is sort of saying that if you want to trade on c4, okay, bishop to e7 by black. But again, pawn to b3 was just sort of saying that if you want to trade on c4, I'll be very happy to capture back with the b pawn instead of capturing back with a piece, maybe knight on the queen. And also, if you look at the position, the knight on d2 is standing in the way of the development of the bishop. So maybe bishop to b2 here, or maybe bishop to a3 after playing something like pawn to a4. So pawn to b3, a good move in my opinion, trying to create some space and some development for his pieces. So bishop to e7 by Gohil, pawn to a4, and now knight to f5 by black. So knight to f5 and the bishop on e7, both of them are attacking the pawn on h4. And what you want to do as white is probably castle sometime in the future. And what you notice is after castling, the rook on h1 just loses the control of the h4 pawn. So by playing pawn to a4, Gabriel Njuki was trying to introduce the idea of playing bishop to a3, trading the bishops and removing one of the attackers of the h4 pawn so that he can castle later on in the game. So good plan. Bishop to a3 was played, bishop captures, rook captures, and now pawn to b5 by Gohil. Castles here by white. Rook to b8, just putting more pressure and maybe some more defense on the b5 pawn. Now c takes b5, c takes b5, and queen to b4. Here, instead of queen to b4, there are so many other ideas that work. Queen to b4 is not a bad idea, it's perfectly good move, but again, there's this idea with pawn to b4. A very good idea in the position. The thing is, now you threaten capture here with the pawn. Then after queen takes back, because the queen is being attacked, the rook can take on h7, on a7 rather, and you have some sort of advantage. You can even double up on the a file and things like that. And here I think black is probably forced to capture. B takes on a4, and now instead of capturing back immediately, you can play something like rook f to a1. They can play queen to b5 maybe. Here you just capture, rook takes on a4, continue the game. Maybe even pawn to a6, even castles here. Anything, I think anything is playable here for black. It's a playable position. So instead of all this, queen to b4 was played by Njuki, and now queen to b6, rook a to a1. So it's simple. I think the idea is probably simple here. If you play a takes b, even rook takes here, just, I mean, this is a lot of pressure on white, because then white has to play something like queen to a4 probably, and now even pawn to a5, and slowly but surely we are taking away this queen and the rook out of the game. Sorry about that. So we are getting the queen and the rook out of the game, and doesn't look like a very pretty position for white. So rook a to a1 was played instead, queen to b6, and now rook f to c1, pawn to a5, queen takes on b5, and here Gohil plays knight takes on d4. Again, knight takes on d4 looks like a very huge gamble. It looks like you're winning back your pawn, I'm guessing, is what Gohil had calculated here, but it looks very, very risky, because Gabriel Njuki replies in the best way possible. Plays queen takes on b6, knight takes on f3 with check, an intermediate move, knight takes back, and now knight takes on b6. And you can see here there are two ideas to continue winning this game. Okay, one of them was played by Gabriel Njuki, which is rook to c5. The other is a very powerful rook to c7. And let's look at the idea with rook to c7. The idea with this is you're cutting off this knight from ever coming back into the game. Probably by going knight to a8, but then you just go rook to a7, even you can grab the pawn on a5 and stuff like that. And you continue with the game, because you go rook to, okay, let's see. So sorry about that. Knight to a8 is played, attacking the rook to a7, and now black can't even capture the pawn on b3, because again, maybe you might calculate and think that you have the pawn to grab after he grabs yours, but the thing is the knight on h8, or the knight on a8 rather, is hanging. Don't know what's happening with my coordinates today in my head, but the knight on h8, the knight on a8 is being attacked. The pawn on a5 is also being attacked. You don't even have time to grab this pawn on b3. So again, by playing rook to c7, you're really taking away this knight. You're taking away this knight from the game. Here they might want to castle, maybe play something like castling here. But again, can play knight to d4. If they play this, you just go rook a to c1. You're putting a lot of pressure on that file. You have the open file. You can go rook to a7 after trading rooks. You can capture the pawn on a5. You can even go rook to c5 at this point if they do nothing. A lot of pressure on the position. So instead of all this, Njuki played rook to c5. Equally good. You're putting a lot of pressure on the a5 pawn. You want to grab it actually. And here they don't really have that many moves to play. Rook to d7 was played. Here you can go rook to c7 again. It's playable. Rook takes on a5 is also playable. Rook to b4 is playable. Rook to b4 is the move that was played by Gabriel Njuki, but I think playing rook takes on a5 gives you much more in the position, because I think maybe probably what he saw was that after rook takes on a5, there's rook takes on b3, and he thought that if he plays rook to a8 with check, the rook just goes back to b8, and there's not really much in the position after that. But here you play knight to d4. Yeah, you chase away this rook. Rook goes to b8, and now you play something like maybe rook to a7. Yeah, rook to a7 is, I think, okay, because then you put a lot of pressure on this knight. The knight cannot, I mean, he cannot castle. If he castles, he loses the knight. So they could play maybe something like knight takes on e5. Here you play pawn to a4, pawn to f4, push the knight away. Knight goes to c4. You can jump in with knight to c6, attacking the rook. Rook goes to c8. You can even go knight to e7 here. Just stop this king from ever castling. And you now have the free will to bring your rook into the game. If they play something like rook to d8, you can now bring your rook to b1. You can double the rooks on the 7th rank, and you're going to have a very comfortable game. So here, instead of all this, rook to b5 was played by Gabriel Njuki. Again, I think a minor inaccuracy, but okay, there was more, I think. It's difficult to see all those ideas with pawn to f4 because, again, it's an engine line. But in my opinion, you could have played that and tried to find something on your own, because then your intuition sort of tells you that rook takes on a5 is the best move to play, but then you never know. So rook king to e7, rook takes on a5, rook takes b3, and now rook to c1. Rook back to b7, rook to a6, rook h to b8, king to f1, and you sort of see that with this it's slowly fizzling out to a draw, but it's not that simple, it's not that trivial. So rook to b1 here was played by Gohil. Rook takes on b1, rook takes on b1 with check, king to e2, rook to b2 with check. Here you can go king to e3, king to e1, either of them is okay. King to e1 was played, and now pawn to f6. Rook to a7, very nice move, just pinning the knight and not allowing that knight to move. Might have ideas maybe of playing, if they capture immediately, you can just play knight takes on e5 and you're completely winning. So instead of all this, Gohil played king to d8, and now knight to d4, attacking the pawn on e6. Knight to c5, just defending it, defending the pawn on e6. And now rook takes on g7, and with this, Gabriel was probably preparing himself for some sort of a race. Then it's going to be the central pawns against the kingside pawns for white, the central black pawns against the kingside pawns. Here Gohil played a knight to d3 with check, king to f1 was played. You don't go king to d1 because then again you get checked by the knight. It's sort of, you're giving Gohil some two free moves. So king to f1. Okay, it's not bad playing king to d1. Does the same thing for yourself in the position, but then by going to king to f1 again, you're staying closer to your pawns. You're not allowing yourself to be checked twice and stuff like that. So f takes on e5 was played. Knight takes on d6 with check. King to c8 again. Could you probably play king to e8 here? I think, considering what happened in the game, in the final stages of the game, I think in hindsight it's better to play king to e8 in this position, and you'll see why. So king to c8 instead was played, and now Gabriel played rook to a5. Rook takes on f2 with check, king to g1, and now the rook went back to a2, attacking the pawn on a4. And Njuki took the pawn on h5. Gohil took the pawn on a4. Again, in this position, I think Gohil he has something to play here, something to play for here, because I think maybe playing something like king to d7, not allowing yourself to be trapped on the back rank, would have been a playable idea, because then again you force this knight to make a move. Does it really go? It can go to f8, can go to d4 maybe, not too sure. Again, you don't really have that much to really play for here as white. Okay, maybe playing something like rook to h6, probably just defending the knight, and again they can play rook takes on a4. They can start pushing their pawns. They can even, this, I don't know, but I think playing this will have given black maybe a slight edge, and maybe he will be the one pushing in that endgame. So rook takes on a4 instead was played, and now rook back to h7, trapping that king on the back rank. Rook to g4 was played, pawn to h5, and it's important to note that at this point they were barely playing on, I think both of them had like a minute or 2 minutes each, and the tournament didn't have increment. It was just 90 minutes flat. So I have a video I'm going to post after this, after the analysis of this game, or maybe I'm going to drop a link for the video in another I'm going to drop the link for the video instead of putting it together. But again, here they were just bulleting their way down to the end of the time. They didn't really have that much time, and I think by playing rook to g4 here, Gohil had simple plans, maybe playing rook to e1, putting a lot of pressure on the pawn on g2, trying to push maybe his pawns or something, just trying to create some chaos in the position. But I think he was living on the edge. I mean, it's becoming really, because this h pawn is really fast. It's, I think, quicker than the e pawn, because the white king is closer to the e pawn than the black king being closer to the h pawn. This is why kings are very important in the endgames. So pawn to h4 was played, pawn to e4, Gohil pushing his pawns, and now pawn to h6, pawn to e3, and now you have to play king to f1. I think I would have also played king to f1, because then again you don't want to face something like pawn to e2, which will just cut off your king completely away from the defense, or maybe would have maybe led you to being checkmated, because again the pawn lands on e2, you can't go to f1, you can't go to f2 because of the knight on d3. There's this rook looming over you on the g4 square. Once he promotes with check, you have to move again to the h file. Again, there's ideas like maybe playing rook to h4, which I think will be checkmate in that position. So again, king to f1 here was played by Njuki. It's a knee-jerk reaction, and I think it's the proper reaction in this position. So rook takes on g2, clever idea by Gohil. But again, now king takes on g2, very accurate play by Njuki. Okay, Gohil, what Gohil saw is that he was going to promote the same time that white is also going to promote, but he missed a very crucial idea. You can pause the clock, try and find the idea here, because again, Gabriel Njuki is completely winning, but he has to find like the perfect moves. He failed to, I mean, he found the first few moves, but he didn't find everything. So you can try and pause the clock, maybe find it. But the idea is, after black plays pawn to e2, which was played in the game, rook to c7 with check, okay? King moves to b8, and now you play pawn to h7. This is the idea. Play pawn to h7, you allow black to promote to a queen, maybe, and you can see that it's not a check. This is the crucial thing. You can see that it's not a check, and here we can even promote to a rook or a queen or anything and just checkmate the black king. So in this case, maybe black would have had to promote maybe to a knight here. But again, after that check, you can just play king to h2. You're perfectly fine. You're promoting on the next move, and you're going to win the game. So instead of all this, Njuki played rook to c1, and Gohil found the Hail Mary to draw this game. So he played knight takes on c1, king to f2 is played, and now knight to d3 with check. The knight is now quick enough to get to the h pawn. King takes on e2, knight to d5, knight to e5, knight to c5 by white, king to c7. Again, these are just moves to completely. They're trying. I think they were probably trying to flag each other at this time, at this moment in the game, because they're just playing really quickly. No one is really even understanding what's going on. People are trying to promote, others are trying to defend. So knight to g6, knight to f7. I mean, just comfortable draw. Here, as black, you're just waiting for that pawn to promote, then you can capture it. Yeah, I don't think there's anything really crazy here. So knight to e6 with check, king to d6, knight to g5, sacrificing the knight. Again, you don't really want to capture this knight, not at all, because you capture white just promotes. So instead of all this, Gohil just played knight to h8, king to e3 was played, king to e5, king to e3, pawn to d4 with check, king to d3, king to d5, knight to f1, and then the king went back to grab the white pawn. So knight takes on d4, king to f7, king to e4, and after king to g7, the game ended in a draw. So this was round 4, an exciting game in my opinion. And again, I think throughout this tournament, people are saying that Gohil was very lucky in his play. But again, I think if you're that good, you create your own luck. So a brilliant game from Gohil. He played really well. He survived, the very least. Again, Njuki just blundered the entire game, which was characteristic of Njuki's tournament. He was trying to. I'm not too sure what he was trying to do during most of the games, but he was missing some very trivial ideas, maybe due to nerves, or I'm not too sure. But in this game, he could have won against Gohil. He would have been clear first in the tournament, but then after the draw, they're all in a tie. Njuki had, I think, 3.5. Gohil had 3.5. And on to the next game. So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share this video if you like it. There's a link in the description showing the final moments of this game so that you can see them blitzing it out. But other than that, hope you enjoy your week. Have an amazing week.